let's talk about how you directed a film where the subject is very much alive and is the producer, one of the producers on the film. And then you have this terrific screenplay from Lee Hall, and then you have your own vision. So how did you blend all that together?
Seamlessly, as you can say. Is the only answer? No, sorry.
Right.
I got the script and a call from Matthew Vaughan, the producer, who was working with Taron on Kingsman 2, which Elton was in. And obviously there were discussions around the piano and on set amongst these guys. And Taron and I were very keen to find another project after working together on Eddie the Eagle, which we had a lot of fun with, and we really felt we brought a lot of kind of heart to. And so when Matthew opened that discussion, I was very quickly trying to engage with that. And obviously, like I say, Taron and I had a very good working relationship. So those sort of things, it's one of those kind of magical things that you can't always define, that stars align and, you know, things come together, and it's really good and healthy, I think, to feel that way about certain projects that you know you're going to have this passion for and are going to require that. Elton, as you say, has a larger than life personality, and the script allowed for that. It allowed for this freedom of imagination and creativity, and I knew that I had a great ally and collaborator in Taron. So that was very exciting, and the more I moved away from a linear kind of biopic kind of take on things and really created a story that was sort of more like all that jazz. This was a great touchstone for us. But this lovely idea of someone unpacking their life and kind of looking back on it and trying to figure out, how do I make myself better? That was a really interesting and exciting approach to the biopic, even if you can call this a biopic.
How involved did Elton want to be? Was he in meetings? Did he see a rough cut? I mean, did he just sort of give you the story, the reins, and say, I'll see you at Cannes? Or how did that work?
In a way, yeah. I mean, you know, it's not that he wasn't ever present. He was, because, you know, he is such a larger-than-life personality, and the stories and the scripts is all derived and grew out of conversations with Lee Hall 10, 12 years ago that they were having, and that screenplay developed from that then I took on, and I would sit and talk with Elton about a lot of the big themes and the relationships in the script. But then he did this wonderful thing where he said, you can't just replicate me, and what you know, Taron can't just sing it the way I've sung it. You've got to take it and make it your own. You know, it's got to be its own thing. It has to live in its own way. And he, you know, he had a world tour to finish. He's doing this incredible Yellow Brick Road 3 years of farewell, you know, which is absolutely right. It takes him a long time to say goodbye, and it's which is great. But he sort of gave us that trust and that love to kind of create. And he did, you know, we took him drawings and had dinners, and you could call him. But there was a point where I think he understood that there was no benefit in him sitting and trying to micromanage something that needed to fly. It needed to find its own voice. It needed to find its own destiny, as it were. And he trusted us and let us feel trusted.
So, Bryce, you, of course, played Elton's mum, Sheila. You know, unlike some of the other actors, you didn't have the real-life person to draw on and even just chat with or, you know, mine for details. So how did you find Sheila without relying solely on the lens of Elton and his memories?
Yeah, I mean, I actually had a lot of personal angst around that, because she was a real person. She was actually recently deceased when we were shooting, and it was a really toxic relationship. And so when I first read the script, and Dexter and I talked for quite a while, I was trying to kind of unpack what was, I mean, it was clear there was some sort of narcissism, but there was also other stuff as well, and trying to figure out what led to this incredibly dysfunctional relationship that was never explicitly abusive and yet had such a lasting effect on Elton. And so to answer your question more directly, what I did was I talked a lot to Taron, because he had spent so much time with Elton and had read so much of what Elton had written, which was obviously, it's like when you have a chat with someone one-on-one for the first time, like meeting them, you're not going to just pour your soul out to them. Whereas on the written page, of course, it's more insightful and more intimate. But I wasn't totally satisfied with that, so I can't even look at you while saying this. I sought people outside of production who weren't affiliated with production who knew her, because it was just important because she's a person. And yes, it was bad. It was very bad between them. It was really not good.
Jamie, what did Bernie teach you about being Bernie?
Such a good question. Boy, he is a very. I just did a CBS morning show with him the other day, and they did all this stuff where they put a whole screen of 30 albums that they'd done together, and all these accolades that they had achieved together, and I would be so proud of that. I would be like, yes, we all did. We went out and did that together. We created it together. He's like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Pretty cool. But I went up to meet him in Santa Barbara, where he lives with his wife Heather, and he was very much like that. He's very unassuming, and I think he'll be writing lyrics forever. He's a sculptor now, which is ironic. If I was a sculptor, but then again, no. He's literally sculpting in a studio, probably right now.
Oh my God.
He had no idea that would be the case, But to expand on the Bernie character slightly, he was at the point where we met him in the film. He had no idea what his life was going to be, no idea where it was going. He had an affection for the arts, an affection for literature, great literature, poetry, and Tolkien, and literally lying in tall grasses, looking at the clouds. This man is a hopeless romantic, and. He was at the point where he answers this ad in this magazine, NME magazine, where he fatefully met Elton. He was scraping dead chickens off the floor and throwing them in an incinerator. So he knew that the only way, he had to write his way out. He had to write his way out of his circumstances and find someone who understood him and could cathartically process his, sometimes, quite frankly, ramblings, almost. Some of his lyrics don't make much sense. I've asked him, I said to Elton at one of these parties that we're at, I said, Elton, do you know what "Take Me to the Pilot" means? He was like, nah. And Bernie doesn't know either. So, he has an affection for words. He has affection for putting them in a certain order and making you and all of us certainly feel a certain way. And Elton was so eloquent musically, fitting that tone. They are different sides to each other's coin. They can't function without each other.
Yeah. So let's talk about you, Taron. I think everybody should know by now that you sing every note and every word in this film. I don't want to say it like this. Who told you could sing? I mean, who told you to sing? Who was the person who said, yep, you're going to play Elton, and by the way, we'd really like you to sing everything. We're not going to lip sync or whatever.
I really love singing. I've always loved it, and I think for many years, I just sort of annoyed my friends and family with it, really. But I've always felt that it's something I wanted to make a feature of my professional life if the opportunity arose. When Matthew first asked me about this 3 years ago, Matthew Vaughan, our producer and a great friend of mine, it was just this irresistible opportunity. And as Dex said, we'd made this movie, Eddie the Eagle, which we were really, really proud of, and we had an incredible time making it. And Dex just creates this atmosphere on set of I feel like saying it's because he's an actor is reductive. It's not that. He's just a brilliant actor's director, and I really felt really creatively fulfilled by that project. And so this iteration of this all just felt really exciting and cool, and And I love Elton's music as well. When I was 17, I auditioned for I went to RADA in London, and Your Song was my audition piece when I was 17, and then again at 18 because they didn't let me in the first time. So yeah, this project was just. Sorry, there was a point to your question. I'm just rambling, aren't I?
That's okay. Well, no, you ramble all
Anyway,
you want.
ramble
It's just the
done.
idea of
Singing, like
you know, it's
singing
always
coming into your
interesting to know, like, kind of when did these swords cross? Like, when did you think, yeah, I'm up to this task? And while I'm asking another question, how did you ramp up? I mean, you.
Well, I think that's an important element of the equation. Is that I didn't. When the first time we went into Abbey Road, I didn't arrive. I was a far better singer by the end of the process than I was at the start. I've done singing before. I lent my voice to this movie Sing that came out a couple of years ago. I play a gorilla in it. So and I actually sang I'm Still Standing in that, weirdly. But so I've always done it and I've always loved it. But through the support of Dexter and Giles Martin, who is the absolute secret weapon of this film, is the Uzi in our belt strap, isn't he? You know, what he's done musically with this film is, I personally think, extraordinary, and he really helped me grow and find my voice, and particularly for the rockier stuff, because ballad singing is one thing, but that kind of slightly more gravelly, Benny and the Jets, Pinball Wizard, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting sound, it needs a bit of grit to it, and that took longer to achieve. But this, the time I've spent over the past year making this movie has been, without a shadow of a doubt, the most creatively satisfying, stimulating endeavour of my life so far, and I know I will treasure it forever. It's been an extraordinary journey. It's just been a great joy, and just the most fulfilling thing. And I've made so many great friends, and I'm so proud of the work we've done, and I'm really proud of the movie. I'm really proud of it.
Nice.
Proud of you, man. Proud of you.